Hello, everyone, and welcome to this informational video brought to you by myself, Seisha. I am a reading tutor. The name of my business is ABC Learn Tutoring, and I tutor children in reading from pre-K through fourth grade. I'm also a reading motivator, so I help to motivate children to want to read as well. And I also started a nonprofit organization called ABC Read. And what we do is we are on a mission to help develop a culture of literacy in the Black community. And we do that by making sure that we get books in the hands of our Black children and Black families that represent Black people here in America and across the globe. And we also do read alouds, and we also do different reading events to encourage Black families to develop a culture of literacy in their homes. And so now I wanted to show you the slide presentation that I came up with. And let me go to the first one. All right. And right here on the title of the first slide, it says this: how can a white teacher or tutor better help their Black student? And as you see right here, I got a couple of books here on the first slide. And these two books are by an author and educator and activist and scholar, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu. Dr. Kawanza Kunjufu has been around for decades. I want to say he probably, since probably the late 70s, early 80s. And his main focus has always been on educating that Black child, understanding how to educate that Black child. And just like right here, you see the title of this book here, Understanding the Black Male and Learning Styles. And as you see, you have that white teacher in the face of that Black boy. And then over here, here's another title. There is nothing wrong with Black students. All right. I put these two books here on the first slide because number one, in order for that white teacher or that white tutor to be able to be an effective tutor or effective teacher to that Black child, they first have to be able to understand that Black child, connect with that Black child. All right. And also, they have to even go through that. And this brings me to the next slide. First, the white teacher or tutor must admit to themselves that they are coming from a racist, superior mindset. And I have a book right here that I put on this slide as well, called White Fragility: Why It's So Hard for White People to Talk About Racism, written by a white woman by the name of Robin DiAngelo. All right, I have the book myself, read the book myself. She was very honest, very blunt, and I appreciate her for that, because anytime you want to get to the crux of an issue, that's what you got to do. You can't sugarcoat it. And that's what we're dealing with in the society right now. That's why we're dealing with a lot of the things that we're seeing in terms of, you have white people trying to, figure out, what's going on, these protests. And I thought, but that racism that has already been in the foundation, in the very fabric of America, is continuously rearing its ugly head. And now more and more, you have more Black people standing up, more of our younger Black people standing up and saying, hey, look, I'm not taking this no more. And now what you have also is you got white folks, some who are like, man, whatever, but you also have some who are like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to, because, the fingers are getting pointed to people that look like me, and I'm trying to figure this out. And so one of the reasons what prompted me as well to do this informational video, because a white tutor, she had asked me about suggesting some different resources to give to her, in terms of helping her Black students that she tutors. And so I was like, yes, I said, I sure can. Now I started to just, type a little list up and then just give it to her and be like, okay. But I said, you know what? I said, now, you know what? I'm going to use this as a teachable moment for any, white educators out there, who are really trying to be sincere. And they're like, man, look, I'm trying to figure this thing out. I don't know how to figure it out, and, I mean, we definitely, this video is not about to be that long in terms of, how come you're not figuring it out? How come you haven't figured it out? I'm just putting 3 bullet points together so that you can have something to go off of in terms of at least jump starting how to be able to connect with your Black students, how to be a more effective teacher or tutor to that Black child that you are educating. So that's why I started off with this. You got to start off with yourself. You have to admit that you're coming from that racist mindset. So when you admit that to yourself, then you have to start saying, okay, how am I doing that? What things am I doing that's showing that my mindset, I believe, is superior to this Black student that I'm tutoring, that I'm educating? Which brings me to the second point. This is when you have to do a little bit of homework. All right. Now I'm going to show you after this slide, I have suggested some different places in which you can start in order to start you on that journey of trying to help that Black student. Second, you have to get books or reading passages that talk about African civilizations and African history before slavery. All right. I put up 2 quotes by one of our just, great ancestors. He has written a plethora of books. He was a historian, someone who was definitely about empowering Black people, here in America and across the globe. And these are the 2 quotes that he was notorious for saying. One of the things he said was, the cruelest thing slavery and colonialism did to the Africans was to destroy their memory of what they were before foreign contact. I mean, in a nutshell, slavery, what did it do? It said what? No, you forget about the African civilizations. Forget about, how Africa was thriving and Europe was actually in the Dark Ages, by the way. Forget about how you had Africans, who were doing great things all over the globe. All right, forget about that. What slavery and colonialism want you to do is to say this. Is to say, I was nothing. I actually started off on the slave plantation. So our dear brother John Henry Clark said, no, I don't think so. That ain't the case. All right. And this is his other quote. He said, if you start your history with slavery, then everything else will look like progress, which is true. Right. So if you start off telling that Black child that they were in the deficit, they were always in the negative, always bad, always underneath, didn't have nothing, always struggling, never was on top. Never did, never invented nothing. Then when you have things like the civil rights movement and, desegregation, then it's like, oh, see, look, there's a glimmer of hope for you. See, look. So when you go to them passages, like a lot of white teachers like to do, and even some Black teachers as well, but I'm focusing again, mainly on those white educators at this particular time in this video. But when you focus on the fact, when you basically say things like, well, look what Rosa Parks did. Look what Martin Luther King Jr. did. And it's like, yeah, they did those things. Yes, these are our heroes and sheroes. We know that as Black people, but once again, showing us what? In the deficit, behind. We always had to come crawling little by little. We seeing little bitty progress. That's because, just like our brother said, if you start your history with slavery, then everything else will look like progress. But if you start your history with the truth and saying, hey, look, Africa, there were African civilizations. You had Africans in Spain, the Moors, where that civilization, I mean, you talk about the wealth of knowledge, you talk about, just all the great, innovations, all the great things that the Moors had brought to Spain, and how they had a great thriving society. If you don't talk about that, if you don't educate that Black child on that, then guess what? All they're gonna keep thinking is that, man, I was subjugated by the white person. I was on a slave plantation. Then I was discriminated against with Jim Crow. All these issues, until finally we had a little glimmer of hope with the Civil Rights Act and other little tiny little strides. All right, so that being said, we're gonna move to the next slide. List of passages to start with. Get passages on Mansa Musa, Queen Amina, Queen Nzinga, the Mali Empire, 100 Great Kings and Queens of Africa, the Moors of Spain. All right, and that's just to name a few. As you see, that's a short list. And there's a whole plethora of different, passages or different articles and different things that you could get to show Black people that were, not in, somewhere in a negative position or down low, okay, at the bottom. They were actually thriving, actually, doing great things. And they did not need the help of Europeans to do it. Then you have passages, about Black people that you typically don't hear about in the classrooms. Marcus Garvey, Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, even talking about Black Wall Street, all right? Talking about Malcolm X, Patrice Lumumba, all right? So getting passages about different people again, and as we know, even just like with, Marcus Garvey, Ella Baker, they definitely spoke out against oppression and racism and all of those types of things, but again, these are figures, these are Black folks that you really rarely hear about. Because as we know, especially when it comes to the educational system, white people had to okay which Black people that the Black kids were learning about. The white people had to approve them. They had to be safe, all right? And so the whole point, what I'm trying to get you all to understand is that, hopefully you understand thus far, when it comes to educating that Black child, it's more than just you disseminating information and getting them to remember it. It's also about empowering them and developing a great relationship with them and getting them to see themselves as valuable and worthy. And if you feel as though this is too hard for you, then I'm sorry to say that you may have to, do something else, or you are going to have to tutor just white kids or other kids, because I'm telling you now, when it comes to educating our Black children, I'm definitely serious about making sure that we are empowering them and making sure that we are uplifting them. And that is something that you have to be on board with. And so that's why I said I'm gonna, do this video so that you all can see that these are some ways in which, if you wanna be that ally, if you wanna be that helper trying to help that Black child, then here's some ways in which you can do that. Third, this is the last point, getting passages on current events that talk about what's going on in society that's in relation to that Black child, okay? Again, getting them to see themselves in society. Again, talking about the things that affect them. Don't be afraid to bring up the protests. I remember seeing some comments, somebody was making comments, it was like right after the protests occurred, and it was on it was some different tutors, and they were basically talking about how You know, you had some tutors who were basically saying that, you know, I mean, what do we need to talk about the protest for? That's, you know, what does that have to do with, you know, the tutoring session? And it's like, well, especially if you're tutoring Black children, it has everything to do with it. This is what's going on in society right now, even with this whole thing with the COVID thing. Now, here it is. We found out that the people who are dying the most, or the people who are not getting treated like they should be because of COVID, is Black folks. Why is that? Why is that? We know why that is. It's called racism. It's called white supremacy. And it has to be talked about. It has to be called out. Our kids, they understand what's going on. Just because they may not be able to articulate it, they understand it. They understand when they're not wanted. They understand when they're not being valued. They understand that they feel it. And so you have an opportunity as a white educator or a white tutor to say, let me ask you, Jamal, how do you feel about what's going on with the protests? What are some thoughts? If you don't want to tell me, I want you to journal it, write it down. And then you can get into when they're writing or whatever, practicing writing, you a tutor and you looking over it and you want to help them with, they have some grammatical errors, whatever the case. But what you're also doing though, at the same time, is that you're getting them to feel valued. You're getting them to understand that yes, they have a voice. They are human beings. They feel and they think, and these things are affecting them. It's affecting them when they look up every day and they see another Black person being killed by a police officer or by somebody who's just harassing them out in the street who's white. They're seeing this and they hearing their parents and their grandparents, their aunties, their uncles, they hearing folks talking about it. So what you gonna do? Try to put them in your little bubble in the tutoring session and try to act like, well, see, we're just talking about grammar and, you know, subject and verbs and predicates and stuff. I mean, what do we need to talk about the protests for? And who's that George Floyd? And it's like, are you serious? Really? You don't understand that the foundation, you know, of teaching a child is developing a relationship with that child, getting them to see themselves in the subject matter. And so, again, I'm not going to belabor the point. I believe I made my point. And I believe I was straight to the point. My goal, again, was to, you know, address the issue, like I said in the beginning, when I was asked about resources. I hope that the resources that I gave, that you all go and research and take a look at. But again, you know, just like with anything, when you want to make changes and be of real change, you got to start with yourself. You got to say, man, what am I doing? What do I need to change? So I hope that you all gained much benefit from this informational, and I hope that you all share this informational and, you know, take the best from it. And I hope that you all continue to try to be better. I know I'm trying to be better always. And I hope that you all are doing the same thing. Thank you very much. Peace.